In this run, I have one goal: to replace every NPC I encounter by taking their gear. Everything from the clothes on their backs to the rings on their fingers. As an impersonator, I will use the equipment of a different NPC for every boss in the game. No matter what it takes, I will obtain their armor, their weapons, their rings, and their spells. While it isn't always necessary to kill an NPC to get their equipment, it conflicts with my goal if I spare them. After all, if I want to replace them, there can only be one. So in this run, I must kill every NPC before challenging a boss with their equipment. So while I don't have to dispose of them immediately, I need to commit to my role eventually. I can't leave them around just because they are useful merchants. But this doesn't apply to every NPC in the game, only ones that I am capable of impersonating. What this means is that in order to become an NPC, I have to be able to wear their armor and use their weapons. Take Petrus, for example. He has unobtainable armor, so we can't impersonate him. On the other hand, an NPC like Solaire has obtainable armor and weapons, so he's someone we can use for the challenge. Another thing about NPCs is that they have to have a physical body, and I have to be able to interact with them. In other words, they have to be killable. Characters that are exclusively invaders or cooperators don't count in this challenge, because they don't have a physical body in the game world. I feel like it's more challenging if I limit the NPCs I can cosplay to just the ones that you find in the world. That way, we'll have to plan our moves carefully. Lastly, duplication is allowed in this run, but as is always my rule for duping, I can only do it if it's a situation where I'd otherwise be farming for hours. So duping can be used as a time saver, but only as a time saver. I can't do something like level my health to 99 before I fight the gargoyles. I'll only do it for things like meeting stat requirements or getting upgrade materials that I don't feel like farming for. With all the rules out of the way, let's get into the challenge. We'll start the challenge in Firelink Shrine, where a few NPCs can already be found nearby. I started as the warrior class because it gives us the sword and board we'll need for our first NPC cosplay. Naturally, the Crestfallen Warrior is the first NPC we can obtain the gear of, so he'll be our first target. We'll at least let him have some final words before we deliver his cruel fate. After that, it's time to take him to the elevator for an easy kill. Okay, so this guy is a little stronger than I remembered, but nothing a little cheese can't solve. The only thing I could get to roll into the elevator shaft was, well, myself, so I had to find a different way to carry out my evil plan. Thankfully, there's no shortage of cliffs around Firelink Shrine. So I simply lured him up these stairs and knocked him down from here, which was much easier than the other cheese I was trying. He won't drop his armor, but we can buy it for very cheap from the merchant in Undead Burg, and I must say, I think it looks better on me anyway. Before we challenge the Taurus demon, we'll be sure to pick up the blue Tearstone ring for later. Since Crestfallen seems to prefer one-handing, I copied that playstyle for the fight. That's probably not very smart when I don't ever block anything, but it's just the Taurus demon, so the reduced damage won't be a big deal. After that's said and done, we've officially crossed one cosplay off the list, with our hit list only growing as we progress through the area. How bittersweet a friendly encounter is, with one whose time is yet to come. But a monster like me must never grow attached to my victims, so it's best we ignore him for a while and continue with our mission. If you're fast enough, you can outrun the gatekeeper and make it to the church before he shuts the gate. But you're not gonna outrun the boar. Once we've reached the Undead Parish, we can start stealing our next identity. Darkroot is just a short walk away, and we'll find everything we need along that path. First, we need to snag the Elite Knight set before the big guys wake up, and after making sure the next bonfire is safe, we can head down into the Valley of Drakes to get our sword. The souls we collected on the way are enough to reach the faith requirement, so now all we need to do is go back to the asylum to take care of Oscar again, getting our final piece of equipment in the process. With the crest shield being the final touch, Oscar's identity has successfully been stolen. My act is so convincing that I'm even heavy rolling, just like the real one. After heading back to the parish, I free Lautrec before I forget, then head down into the basement towards the next boss. While our heavy equip load is not ideal, what we lack in speed we make up for with poise, so I could easily plow through the dogs to free Griggs. I know, I'm only freeing him for my own nefarious purposes, not out of the purity of my heart, but he doesn't have to know that. Let him stay ignorant to the horrors of the world. Once that's taken care of, we'll proceed through the level as usual. With our poise, the Hollow Thieves aren't much of an issue either, and we can avoid getting parried by powering through their hits with a jump attack. After I come back from the shortcut, it's time to challenge the Capra Demon and the Canis Demons. The first attempt goes about as you'd expect from someone who's programmed to roll, but on the second one, I got a bit luckier with the initial dodge and remembered to actually use my shield this time. The Astora sword is a great early weapon, and the Capra Demon stood no chance against it on his own. Astora's straight sword not only does good damage against early enemies, but it also is a divine weapon, which means we're gonna get our money's worth and take this thing through the catacombs. Since I have some chores to do down here anyway, I figured it would be best to do it under Oscar's identity, so we don't have to worry about the skeletons getting revived. While we don't have to kill the necromancers to get rid of the skeletons, we do need the skull lantern because it's required to get a certain piece of gear for later. Don't call me darling. Of course, before I return to the surface, I'll get the Seance ring so we can challenge Gwendolyn when the time comes. We might as well progress the Cleric Crew's questline. They'll be useful somewhere down the line, but for now, I have a different target in mind. In order to spawn in Shiva and his friend, we need to join the Forest Hunters. With all the soul items I picked up around the catacombs, I can buy the Crest of Artorias to get us there faster. Of all the atrocities I'm gonna commit in this run, upsetting a cat is the most evil of them all. I don't think I'm gonna be able to look her in the eye after this. So yeah, after I pick up the Eastern armor that's randomly on the side of a cliff and not actually dropped by Shiva, we'll head down to Blighttown to speak with him again as a merchant. Down here, none of his Covenant buddies can back him up. So yeah, it's a little scummy, but it'll make my job so much easier. But first, I need to make sure I buy the Uchigatana so we can also take his friend's identity. And now, with nothing more we need from him, it's time to quietly dispose of him. For some reason, his friend didn't aggro, so this should have been even easier than I thought. But being the parry god that I am, I decided to be a show-off and parry him to death instead of just fighting him normally. I even could have led him into the poison. I don't know why I assumed that wouldn't work. As is always the case in these runs, my arrogance does not go unpunished, because now that I died to him, he and his friend are right back at their spawn point, and now the whole squad's angry. So it looks like we'll have to do things the old-fashioned way and lure them to the farming spot at the entrance. It took a while, but eventually Shiva followed me all the way here, where he promptly met his demise. But I have to be a lot more cautious when going back to retrieve his weapons. A backstab from his bodyguard is just shy of being a one-shot. Thankfully, I survived long enough to pick up the rest of his loot. In order to use this thing, I'll need a lot more strength. Luckily, this is just the right place for a little early farming. I may not have been so lucky the next time I got backstabbed, but we're both ice-cold assassins, so we'll be reunited in hell. For now, my work here is taken care of. So my next mission is to ring the Bells of Awakening. After another short farming session, I get the 19 strength I need to two-hand the Murakumo, and then it's time to challenge the gargoyles. Carrying this heavy sword along with a shield puts us back in heavy load, and with this weapon already being kinda clunky, this fight turned out to be a bit more difficult than I imagined. Extra poise is not always a good thing. Sometimes it just makes it easier for enemies to combo you when you don't get knocked down. I still can't break my rolling habit. Not that it would have helped me much to block with how slowly my stamina regenerates. The best thing to do here is swallow my pride and upgrade my weapon. If anything, the extra damage will give me a boost in confidence to help me be more aggressive. Just a small upgrade made a huge difference. And once I actually got a turn to attack, the Murakumo paid for itself with those quick staggers. Since the second gargoyle barely does anything but the fire attack, it will only be a matter of time before we can ring the first bell. And after ringing the first bell, the most logical course of action would be to head right down to the second one. If Shiva rang the first one, why not let his friend ring the second one? We bought the Uchigatana already, and picked up the Targus shield earlier, and since we took the time to get the Skull Lantern, we can trade that with the Crow to get the Ring of Fog. Unfortunately, the Shadow set is in Upper Blighttown, but with our sneaky flips, we should be up there in no time. Before that, I decided to impress Mildred with my parrying skills, and she responded with a gentle tap on the back to stop me from embarrassing myself. With her to keep me on task, I finally made it to Upper Blighttown for the Shadow set, apparently losing my hair in the process. Even with our bare bones setup, Quelaag shouldn't be too hard. We just can't linger around a lingering hitbox. While the individual slashes of the Uchi don't do much themselves, I was lucky enough to get her in an attack loop that took out roughly 20% of her health while it lasted. And even if she can't bleed, her simple attack patterns each provide a generous window during which we can pile on the damage. That was easy enough, but before we proceed through the game, we'll get a few attunement slots for the next NPC impersonation. The Firekeeper is gone anyway, so we might as well run to get that other Firekeeper soul before we head back up. With the Ring of Fog, I actually survived this for once. The Undead Parish is gonna be our makeshift base while we prepare our next move. Sorry, Griggs, but you gotta go. Our options are pretty limited right now, so we have to work with what we have. I'll buy his pathetic sorceries, but that's the last thing I'll be needing from him. Nothing personal, Griggs. Before we go to Sen's fortress, we'll buy the shield he uses from the Undead Merchant, then level intelligence to 12 so we can use his spells. We also found the Mailbreaker around the same place we freed him, and the most important thing will be inside the fortress. First, we'll pick up the Shotel so we don't have to come back for it later, then we can get the Black Sorcerer set to complete the build. It was fun ninja flipping through the fortress, but now that I have everything, I'm forced to assume the much lamer identity of Griggs, which comes with a lot of weaknesses. I guess the Slumbering Ring is kinda cool, but this isn't the old hero. The enemies here can see me, so what good does it really do? After completing the very important task of opening up the shortcut elevator, I have no choice but to challenge the Iron Golem with the puny magic I have. My strongest spell was doing 50 damage per hit. Yeah, my strongest spell. I can see why your master ditched you, Griggs. Every death felt like a huge loss of progress in this painfully drawn-out fight. I did spend some time getting more souls for a tad of extra intelligence, but as you can see, that only increased the damage from Heavy Soul Arrow by 2. If Griggs didn't have a Mailbreaker, I seriously don't know what I would have done. Its damage is equally pathetic to my magic, but at least I don't have a swing limit, right? So yeah, it's pretty weak and made this fight take a long time, but I literally couldn't have done this fight without it, so I've gotta give it some credit. Knowing the NPC I'm targeting next, I'd better get as much endurance as I can. Now we're gonna do a bit of backtracking, starting with Logan in Sen's fortress. Look, Griggs, I'm already a better apprentice than you. We need Havel's Ring, So next, we're going all the way back to Darkroot. It's not relevant to what I'm doing right now, but it'll save some time later, so I decided to take care of the Hydra as well. Back in Anor Londo, our sorceries may not be very damaging, but damage means nothing if you can't get hit. When the gargoyles are no longer there to pester us, we can easily get to the painting room for the greatsword in the corner. I've collected a lot of souls by killing the enemies here. Let's hope I don't lose them so I don't have to farm for the set. Okay, it didn't go exactly as planned, but I finally managed to farm enough souls to buy the Katarina set, as well as the steel set, since the knight here wasn't kind enough to drop it for me. However, he did drop the tower shield, which is basically a handicap since I can't even wield it. The crestfallen merchant may look intimidating with that armor, but he's just as slow as us. He has to wear the Havel ring to even roll at all. Unfortunately, that's some bad news for us, seeing as we're fighting ONS under his identity. I don't recommend fighting them below 20 vitality with a heavy equip load. I'm not setting a very good example of being prepared in a challenge run. I think I only had the greatsword to +4 when I started, so first of all, that's gonna change. If I can't be a tank, I'll be a glass cannon. So after running all the way back to the depths entrance for the large ember, I upgrade my sword to +10 with Andre. With a much stronger sword, I was able to get to phase 2 after a couple of hours of attempting this. I tried both Ornstein and Smo's phase 2, and ultimately decided that Smo would be way easier since his attacks barely change. I learned that he can be staggered in one hit with the greatsword's running attack. If done quick enough, it can even be used to interrupt his butt slam. To be safe, I stayed by a pillar to prevent his charge from ever connecting. That tended to be the hardest one for me to avoid at my speed. It took a lot of willpower, but I slowly but surely defeated the fabled duo to claim my Lord Vessel. The first thing I do after this fight is level my vitality. I'm just not the kind of person who doesn't get hit. Now, we're gonna get justice for Anastasia, though I'm arguably a worse person than Lautrec. But our so-called justice is really just for the convenience of having the bonfire anyway. And more importantly, defeating him is the only way we can obtain his set. I helped Siegmeyer earlier, so we can also progress his quest back in Firelink Shrine. So I made a huge mistake here trying to start the recording. I pressed the confirm button to get back on the game tab and kinda just killed the only merchant in the game that sells the hand axe. Whoopsie. Laurentius, I trust that you're competent enough as a pyromancer to not need your hand axe. Before we continue with our grim duties, we need to buy his pyromancy and ascend our pyromancy flame to whatever we can afford.
That must be it.
Yes, you're right, Laurentius. That must be it. That's why I'm murdering you with it. How's it going over there, Siegmeyer? Well, now that that's done, I'm gonna try a boss that even our tiny pool of pyromancy can beat. Since we can't get the hand axe anymore, it's our only choice, so we're just gonna go crazy with it on Pinwheel. Let's not let things get too out of hand here. Okay, Pinwheel, I know I said we could go crazy, but not that crazy. After having a near-death experience at Pinwheel's party, I decided to clear my mind with a little co-op off camera. I did this to lower the faith requirement for the Sunlight Covenant, and for some souls to buy Donal's set. He's not doing me any favors with these prices. I still needed 14,000 souls to buy his weapons, so to get those, I fed some things to Frampt and farmed the golems. What is it with NPCs in this game and being in heavy load? What are you even doing carrying all these weapons, Donal? At least we don't have to worry if one of them breaks. That's really the only advantage to carrying them both. Since I can only use the Crystal Greatsword while two-handing, I won't get much use out of the shield, so we're stuck with an accessory again. I don't think Stray Demon is a fight where being slow will matter too much, so we're gonna do that one next. Besides, we need that doll. I like the straight sword and the great sword, but chose the latter for its high AR. This fight was nice and quick, so now the only thing we've got to worry about is those Black Knights. After getting back my souls and picking up the Rusted Iron Ring, I can get an extra level before returning to Firelink Shrine. To truly carry on Lautrec's legacy, the first thing I do in his form is get the Firekeeper soul in New Londo. Then we can get his parrying dagger as we make our way to the seal. At this point in the game, Ingward will just give you the key without a fight, but that's not the way I do things. This is the most convincing cosplay so far because I've adopted Lautrec's entire personality. After using the key to open the gates, our last piece of gear will be right up this ladder, the good old red Tearstone ring. We've got a lot of gear to collect in the Painted World. Normally, you'd need the Annex key for this set, but a simple jump will save us the trouble of dealing with the skeleton wheels. For now. Lautrec's Shotel ended up being a perfect choice for this area. The kick is replaced with a backflip that gets you just far away enough to avoid the toxic burst from the big head guys. It might not be foolproof, but the odds of getting hit are still very low if they aren't directly in front of you. Besides getting the Black Cleric set and Velka's Rapier, my reason for being here was to farm for souvenirs to rank up in the Darkmoon Covenant. I forgot that I was still online from the co-op I did earlier and panicked when I got invaded with 6 soft humanity, but whoever this invader is, I guess it's your lucky day. These crows won't let me escape on their watch. Despite that happening, I stuck around for a while in hopes of getting 10 souvenirs to give to Gwendolyn. Duping is always an option, but honestly, I just wanted to hang out in the Painted World a little longer. It did get really tedious after 40 minutes of no drops, so after I got everything I needed, I left to pursue my other goals, sparing Priscilla for the time being. I ended up caving and duping the ears for Gwendolyn so I could get the Talisman and Darkmoon Blade Miracle. My reasoning for this was that I would need it in order to complete the Darkmoon Nidus cosplay, which is not possible without doing NG+, but sometimes when planning things very meticulously, your brain skims over some details, so I hadn't realized this yet. Regardless, killing her doesn't have many consequences anyway, so I'll happily take another Firekeeper soul for my goddess. My next target is not Priscilla, nor Gwendolyn, but a boss that is just so in character for us to do next. That's right, we're fighting Sif next, because Lautrec is the kind of guy who kicks puppies, likely for his own amusement. I tried the RTSR strategy for my first attempt, and that was quickly shut down, so I decided not to take any risks and just fight her the easy way. Lautrec had no problems putting her down, but he was merciful enough to end her suffering as quickly as he could. I mean, come on, I'm not even sure that a heart as cold as Lautrec's can watch that limping without feeling bad. After this, I started getting some faith because I hadn't realized my error in calculations yet. The next thing I wanted to do was get the brass set from Gwendolyn's Arena, and out of all the available NPC identities, Ingward seemed like a good candidate for this one. I spent a few hours farming for the Ghost Blade that he takes for granted by keeping it in his offhand, and of course, we got the rest of his gear earlier in Blighttown. Before we go to the Darkmoon Tomb, I buy Great Heavy Soul Arrow from Logan. I'm sure sorcery won't be super helpful against Gwendolyn, but I prioritize authenticity when I can. It wasn't until I was about to fight Gwendolyn that I realized the stupid mistake I had made. Playing the other games made me forget about a certain mechanic with Covenant rewards in DS1. There are certain Covenant spells that you can only use while in the Covenant. Darkmoon Blade is one of them. Darkmoon Nidus uses Darkmoon Blade, but to get her armor, you have to kill Gwendolyn. And killing Gwendolyn kicks you out of the Covenant, and you can't join it again when the leader's dead, so I just wasted a bunch of time getting Covenant rewards that I won't be able to use. Oh well, learn from it and move on. Such is life. As for the fight itself, Ingward was doing alright. I died less on this run than I did on the others. The Ghost Blade wasn't particularly impressive, but I farmed that thing for hours, so you can be damn sure I'm gonna use it. It wasn't what I used to finish the fight though, that was the Tin Banishment Catalyst. Its melee attack is probably the best thing we have against Gwendolyn. For a Catalyst, the damage is pretty good. Once that's finally over, we can pick up our real prize from the chest at the end. We may not have all the tools that she has, but we at least have her S-Stock in its unbuffed state to work with. It's not like this is the first time I've missed out on some weapons and had to do a scuffed cosplay, but that damage is really scuffed. I would have thought +6 would be fine against Priscilla, but we're barely making a dent in her health. Darkmoon Blade would have alleviated that issue, but we don't have that luxury, so there's no use in complaining. You can tell from my greed that I got a little impatient here. The mind-numbing repetition of rolling away and attacking the air by her footprints somehow programmed me to roll back into her. 1 death to Priscilla is whatever, but I think 2 deaths is a little excessive. And since I'll never do enough damage to make her reappear, I should just upgrade my weapon to make it go by faster. I still got pretty greedy, but the extra damage made it possible to take her out before she had time to attack. The next NPC we're going to impersonate is the Pardoner. We've got his set, we've got Velka's rapier, now all we need are the miracles. The only one I'll use is Karmic Justice. I use my remaining souls to get a Purging Stone because you never know when you might need one. After buying everything we need, we can witness that inhuman swordsmanship the rapier's description was going on about. The next area I'm choosing to clear is the Tomb of the Giants. I don't think our setup has any particular advantages, I just need to get it out of the way to progress a few questlines. The first thing I do when I arrive in the pit is cast Karmic Justice to see what it can do. Vince and Nico never managed to activate it, but I did get some dagger parries in the dark. I thought that was kinda cool. Once we speak with Rhea to finish the cleric quest, our only other choice is to blindly rush through the tomb. When I say blindly, I actually mean blindly. Remember, we're cosplaying Oswald, and last time I checked he didn't use a skull lantern, so we've got the bonus challenge of clearing this area without any light. I'll just say that's much easier said than done. I thought I'd played this game enough to have memorized this area, but without the lights, my brain completely blanked out here. It was a long journey, but I finally made it to the second bonfire, and I am not going through that again, so we aren't leaving until Nito dies for the second time. My damage wasn't looking great. While my first few attempts weren't the worst, I quickly got burnt out and started jumping in only to get ganked by the skeletons. Ideally, Karmic Justice would be a perfect counter to the skeletons, but it tended to only activate in the most unhelpful moments. After trying this fight for a bit, I decided to get some use out of the Twinkling Titanite I got in front of the boss area and upgraded my weapon one more time at the bonfire. There were a few times where Karmic Justice was triggered during the fight, but the chance of it going off seemed pretty low, so in the end I just stopped bothering with casting it. The best karma for the skeletons turned out to be Nito himself. Instead of wasting my time worrying about reapplying it, I started to wait for the AoE each time I wanted to attack. If you are patient enough to keep doing this, you should be okay as long as you stay away from corners and don't aggro the big guys in the back. Now that Nito is defeated, Patches has moved to Firelink, where we can buy the Cleric set, as well as the Crescent Axe and the rest of the weapons from the Clerics. I suppose I could have saved my money by killing him for the axe, but right now I'm not too concerned with souls. Before the Cleric boys can take on the bosses we skipped earlier, I need to buy their shield from Andre. The first one on cleanup duty is Nico. The Gaping Dragon is a little tanky, so his Crescent Axe will be good for this. At this stage in the game, I'm not as scared to take risks, so I focus on the head to get max damage. However, as a testament to how much I've been neglecting my vitality, I almost get one-shotted by the body slam. I honestly thought I was dead and was amazed to see that my character got back up. When I was all healed and ready to go, I also casted Replenishment to get into character a little more. It doesn't last very long, but the healing over time from this spell is really fast. so it was good to have it for some extra security as I wrapped up the fight. The other member of the early game cleanup crew is Vince, and all he has is a mace, but I didn't bother upgrading it since all he has to do is kill a butterfly. I honestly should have just upgraded it because it would have saved a lot of my time. I had to sit through like 4 of these cycles to kill it, and at a certain point I just started tanking through the AoE because I didn't care anymore. Every now and then, you might have noticed that a huge sum of souls suddenly disappears in certain clips. Well, now you know where those souls have been going. Since we bought everything we need from Patches, the only thing left to do now is become Patches. The last piece of our Patches setup is the Eagle Shield in Upper Blighttown. After we get that, the only thing we're missing is the bald head. We need to prepare the Winged Spear for combat by upgrading it to plus 14. I duped some upgrade materials to speed up the process. With our weapon upgraded to a fitting level, we can head out towards the Duke's Archives. I didn't think about it at the time, but I probably should have upgraded the shield as well since I got some good use out of it here. It blocked most of the physical damage from tougher enemies like the boars, but it couldn't protect me in every situation. Man, I'm glad I bought that purging stone. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. It's been a few months, okay? Alright, here it is, the maiden set. Now we can get out of here. Before I fight Seath, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the Golden Golem to start Sieglin's quest, then backtrack to the cells to free Logan. I'm carrying a lot of souls. Seath is never a problem for me with normal weapons. Am I just cursed to lose my souls in this exact same spot on every playthrough? Seath can't win against me if I have nothing to lose. The pain from the loss only makes me stronger. I was gonna just do it myself, but it seems Petrus has beaten me to the punch. You're lucky to be wearing cut content, otherwise you would have been dead a long time ago. With nothing but a piece of cloth to defend ourselves with, the best course of action is to fight something that we don't actually need to fight. Rhea's gonna fight the Ceaseless Discharge with Cheese, and although I did it without dying this time, I did get hit by his big jump, which is still a little embarrassing. The next fight should be a little more eventful. Quelana's gear is pretty simple. Other than her clothes, she only has the Rusted Iron Ring and her trusty Pyromancy Flame. Next, we have to do something with these 8 million souls that somehow found themselves into my pocket. As tempting as it is to splurge, we are only leveling required stats, nothing more, nothing less. Besides, isn't there a fable about taking more than you need? First, I'm gonna get 50 intelligence, so I can use Logan's spells somewhere down the line. And the only other thing I'm doing is getting an extra attunement slot to use Quelana's Pyromancy. The rest of these souls are going towards buying the ridiculously expensive sorceries to finish Logan's quest, and the even more absurdly expensive Pyromancy Flame upgrades. Once I'm sure I bought all the Pyromancy I need, you know what we have to do next. Her fire resistance is no joke, but similarly to Shiva, she can be poisoned in the swamp, after which she stops pursuing and just stands there staring into space. After the poison kicks in, we can get Fire Tempest early, which we'll put to good use throughout the run. And don't worry, I didn't forget, it's time to say goodbye to those souls. I think Quelana can handle the 4 kings. Pyromancy in general is a safe strategy against tougher bosses. While our damage is great, our casts are limited, so we need to make sure we don't whiff. Great Combustion is fast enough for chain casting to keep damaging them while they fade away. It's always good to get some extra hits in just in case. Great Fireball is also, great. It's not as fast as our other one, but individual casts are slightly stronger. Once I expended my more straightforward Pyromancy, Fire Tempest would be all I have to finish the fight. It's a little tricky to cast without getting interrupted, but when it hits, each individual pillar does over 700 damage, so if I could just get a couple more to connect, I could do this with no problems. Even when I tried to bait 2 kings into the pillars, I usually just missed them both entirely. However, I found that getting interrupted very late into the cast is actually helpful. I can't control when this happens, but when it does, my character will only have time for a couple pillars, which leaves me a couple more chances to cast. On the final attempt, I didn't manage to kill the 4 kings with Fire Tempest, so I had to resort to some classic catalyst whacking. I had lots of Estus and plenty of determination, so I went all in and punched to my heart's content. I also got really good RNG this time. For some reason, the other kings that had spawned in were being really passive, which I took advantage of with my unrelenting aggression. While I'm still in Quelana's form, I'll use the strength of her pyromancy to get a few things done around the world. Logan is not much of a threat and goes down easily with Great Combustion, giving us his catalyst, his hat, and a unique spell we can use later. Next, I need to defeat the other Golden Golem so I can free Dusk and have the DLC open for later. Once she's free, I'll summon her, then quickly run back to the end of the lake to get her outfit. Okay, now we can focus on our next cosplay. As you saw earlier, our new identity is Sieglind of Katarina. Before she fights any bosses, we're gonna open up the shortcut to make our lives easier. Lost Izalith is also the final step of Siegmeyer's quest. We'll do that, so she'll do some of our dirty work for us. Hey look, the quest actually went as intended this time, without me having to snipe anything. I'm sorry, Sieglind, but the Onion Knights just aren't allowed to get happy endings in these games. At the very least, I'll keep the Onion legacy alive by slaying the ferocious demons of Izalith. The Bastard Sword demolishes everything, and that's why I love it. I've definitely got a soft spot for heavy weapons, since they were always my first choice in every game. Moving on to the Centipede Demon, Siegmeyer's setup is almost identical to his daughter's, only the Bastard Sword is swapped out for the Zweihanda. We don't have the Charred Ring, and since we're in heavy load, we kinda just die if we misstep into the lava. But we don't need it anyway. The area by the Fog Gate is all the space we're gonna need. Few things are a match for the Zweihanda. I would think a House Centipede is not one of them. Solaire, I'm sorry to say this, but your time has come. Wow, I'm just a terrible person, aren't I? For the Logan cosplay, I chose the Insane version since it's the only time he uses the White Dragon Breath spell. This is another one of those spells that I've always ignored because I already have good spells. Usually it comes with a lot more casts, but the 10 Crystallization Catalyst halves our casts in return for more damage. For a spell that takes 50 intelligence to use, I would think it would do really big damage, but the damage was pretty underwhelming compared to my other spells. It didn't feel worth it for the long cast time and weird hitbox. I can see why this spell is often neglected when Crystal Soul Spear is right there and takes less intelligence to use. I feel like this fight just isn't the best place for this spell, so I don't want to be too quick to downplay it. I think this seems like a good spell to use in PvE outside of boss fights. I can see it being really useful for clearing out rooms of enemies, but with bosses, the straight line is just too awkward and inconsistent. But regardless, I was able to get it to connect a final time with only one cast to spare. There's no better place to get bolts than from Chester himself, so before I get to work, I'll buy as many as I can to take to the Artorias fight. Let's see if White Dragon Breath is any better against an NPC. Besides that first time where it went right through his face, it was more consistent with a target that isn't constantly flying all over the place. It made pretty quick work of him. Between those 3 casts, that coward didn't even fight back. Even though he looks straight out of Bloodborne, he only wields a sniper crossbow, because the chosen undead isn't ready for quicksilver bullets yet. We can't expect to do too much damage even with the strongest bolts. Such is the life of the humble crossbow. It looks like our only opening is gonna be the jump. God, this brings back terrible memories from the Gravelord Miracle run. I may be a little spoiled, but medium roll feels so clunky now. I can't believe I used to play this way. Now I feel like I can't live without the fast roll, especially on fast-paced fights like this one. This is going to be a difficult fight regardless, so I need to give myself as many advantages as I can. So I assumed the form of Quelana and took a quick trip to the Painted World to farm until I had enough endurance to fast roll. That's much better. I basically rely on rolling here. The reloading animation is really slow, and unlike later games, you can't choose when to reload. It took a couple hours and so much patience to pull this off. It wasn't as bad as the Gravelord Miracles, but I've gained a certain level of respect for people who do crossbow-only runs. After all, I can't help but to respect people who are just as out of their mind as I am. Like I said, I'm out of my mind, so I'm gonna shoot Kiaran with a crossbow while she's in the middle of mourning. That aggravated her enough to join my little game of chase around the map. I ran around the town to try to get her to fall there, and when that failed, I took her to the best place I could think of, the elevator shaft. If you love Artorias so much, why don't you go see him? All we have to do now is reload and return to the gravesite to pick up her gear. I'm also using the Hornet ring since it's her ring. I don't know if she actually wears it in-game or not. Before we head into the Abyss, I dupe some souls to get 25 dex so I can wield her weapons. I also use those souls for their upgrades before I use the Dark Sign. The Gold Tracer is really fun to use as always. I love those trails of light. I don't need to rely on critical hits too much, but it's a nice thing to have when I do manage to backstab the Oolacile residents. Also, I didn't notice this until later, but I'm using her tracers in the wrong order. The silver one is supposed to be in the right hand, but I might as well prioritize physical damage anyway. The critical damage and toxin won't be much help against Manus. I'm mid-rolling again, but that's no excuse for failure here. My Kiaran doesn't feel super authentic since I'm not a stealthy featherweight assassin, but maybe it's just the weight of the tasks Artorias couldn't finish weighing her down. At least I'm not too chicken to avenge him, unlike another Kiaran that I know. My extra equip load made it harder to dodge his wombo combo, but as soon as I started fighting him, my memorization of his attack patterns came flooding back like a curse. I ended up not using my Dark Silver Tracer even for the dual wielding attack, but it still looked cool to have it in my offhand. With Manus gone, we can finally free Dusk. That is, free her from her mortal shackles. Our work in the DLC isn't done until Calameet's been taken care of, so it's crucial that I get Goff to shoot him down before I steal his identity. Once again, I dupe some more souls, but this time I did it so that I wouldn't have to worry about restocking my great arrows. Now, I'm afraid it's time to say goodbye to the Gentle Giant. Of all the atrocious things I've done to the NPCs in this run, this one hurt me the most. I know, I'm a disappointment. I'm sorry, but it's the only way to get your armor. I usually say that armor looks better on me. I can't say that here. Methinks it's a couple sizes too big. With such heavy armor and a giant greatbow, I couldn't even hope to have a mid-roll here. In this case, poise is actually a bad thing. If I get caught in the fire while trying to strafe it, my poise makes it so that I can't move anymore. I know that rolling is not a good option, but it still seemed better than getting left to burn to death in his fire. Surprisingly, the heavy roll wasn't that bad against his physical attacks. It was really just the fire where it became a problem. The Artorias fight gave me an irrational fear of the bow, because this fight turned out to be pretty easy and kind of fun. The headshots not only do bonus damage, but also leave Calameet staggered long enough for me to regenerate my stamina. The Hawk Ring also increases the range of arrows, so we can shoot him from a very comfortable distance. As long as I stay patient and keep away from him, I should be out of range of his fire breath and have an easy shot at victory. And just like that, I beat the DLC by replacing Gwyn's knights and doing all the things they couldn't do. Before we face Gwyn himself, we have one more thing left to make us miserable. I didn't want to waste a good build on a gimmick boss, so I saved Bed of Chaos for Dusk. She has no weapons and no spells, but of course, she's still wearing the Duskcrown ring. I mean, why wouldn't she be, right? It's a precious heirloom. Who cares if it cuts your health in half? Beauty is pain. Needless to say, this didn't make Bed of Chaos any less painful. I took many beatings before I made it to the second orb. I had to bring out the pro gamer strats for this one. The hardest part is done. We just need to make it to the core. Whoa, that was close. I can't believe I survived that. Thank God this is over. Time for Gwyn. While this may be predictable and cliché, it's also the most poetic way to end this run. We're going to slay the Lord of Light in Solaire's name, so that he may find his son and link the fire. Since I did a co-op session, I only need 20 faith to join the Sunlight Covenant. This is just for the style. Lightning Spear isn't going to do anything against Gwyn. The Sunlight Shield has a parry. You know where this is going. Let's see how much damage Lightning Spear does, just for fun. 30 damage? Yeah, that's what I figured. Let's just stick to parrying. Since I'm such a parry god, we'll do this on the first try. What? This isn't for the win? Come on, Gwyn, that's so unsatisfying. Well, however we do it, it's still a win, and a fitting conclusion to an NPC cosplay run. Solaire will be the one to link the fire after all, only no one will know, it's just an imposter. Thank you all so much for watching this video to the end. I had a lot of fun cosplaying the mini NPCs of Dark Souls. I'm surprised we had enough people for every boss. If you enjoyed this video, I have more challenges for the Soul series on my channel, and plan to upload many more, so stay tuned for that.